Well, hello again. I'm Dean Jones, President and CEO of Realogic Sotheby's International Realty. And today my guest on Market Perspectives is the great Christa Frosch from Sotheby's International Realty Canada. And you're not only an alum, but you have so much to share. But we're going to have to start with your experience now, Christa. So being Canadian is pretty fabulous.
It's wonderful.
Being a Sotheby's International Realty broker is pretty fabulous too, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And you're also a market leader, which we're going to get into in a second. But give our audience a little background on how distinctive your position is in Canada for Sotheby's International Realty.
Okay. I started in 2005 when we first started in Canada, which we pioneered basically for the first 5 years. We did a lot of projects and took on some resale, but the main focus was projects at the time when I started.
Okay.
And it was a time when the project sales did very well. So it was a very interesting time. We had a lot of luxury projects that we were working on, very successful. And then we slowly got into the residential sales.
Yeah, resale,
which was very nice. And it was a very interesting first 5 years in the business.
I bet.
It was a very interesting 5 years in the business.
And you were literally one of the founding members for Sotheby's International Realty in Canada.
In Canada,
so that was a franchise that was put together in 2005?
2005, yes.
Wow. And here you are now with expansion to your business practice. Now, you have a number of accolades. First of all, I think you have the highest sale in, is it BC or is it in Canada?
It's in Canada.
And tell me about that one.
That was Belmont Estate. I sold that in 2021, and it sold for $46 million. It was a beautiful home, Spanish banks. We had Sotheby's auction house come in and do art valuation.
Okay.
It had a beautiful silver collection that got sold in London and New York, which was it was a successful
At the
story.
Sotheby's auction?
At the Sotheby's auction,
Wow,
which was
good
very
job.
nice. It was very good. And Sotheby's, our head office, did a wonderful job with our global marketing. It had a lot of exposure around the world. And it was a wonderful experience.
Well, I think we threw an island property your way too as a referral up in the BC waters.
Yes, Point House.
And that's still underway. So, I mean, it's just so exciting to be here. I mean, I know we share the brand, we share our birth country, and we share this region I want to call Cascadia. And this is sort of the idea that if you take, northern Oregon, western Idaho, all of Washington, and the southern districts of BC, we do sort of share a microclimate, we share sort of a demographic, and we also share some brilliant dirt for the next conversation that we're going to have. And that is all about viticulture and wineries and your experience in that. So walk us through how you became such a specialist in these, ex-urban estate properties, micro ranches, farm and, vineyards as well.
So we started in 2005. In 2008, when the market changed,
Okay.
I had worked and lived in Germany, and I thought this is a great opportunity for investment in land. And there was a lot of land that became available, in particular in the Okanagan, Vancouver Island, all of those kind of things. So we decided to focus on that market, and I launched in 2008 the Vineyard Collection, which was specific to wineries and vineyards and land focused for investment for long-term investment for families, and a safe place for people that were coming from other countries and so on. So that's kind of how that started. And we have 350 wineries in Canada in that microclimate, 11,000 acres. And the interesting thing is now Washington also has 400 wineries.
Oh, yes.
3 major areas with climate and varietals, and making some very good wine. And so it just happened that it started in 2008 and it's carried on. And I'm a vineyard specialist, and I work with around 30 other vineyard specialists in the world. So Argentina, Oregon, California, New Zealand, Australia, Italy, France. So we really can work together. And when you get to a certain level in the wine business, there's a lot of families that actually have wineries in different
I bet.
areas
Right.
just for varietals and just for just uh, let's just
The investment sort of diversification.
diversification.
I mean, they
That
know
was the
their
word I was going
business,
for,
right?
yeah.
And if you're doing well in Argentina and you come to learn about this burgeoning district with us, which I would say is fairly well established now in Washington State,
It is, yeah.
and with your help, we're going to get even more visibility for this. So it sounds like you were advising a lot of family offices on financial safe harbor, investing in real estate, and then activating the real estate through building out either ground up, with a winery operation, or in fact an existing winery that you would quietly acquire. I mean, they don't seem to come around for sale that often. I mean, are you knocking on doors or knocking on ranch gates, or how does this go about for you to discover who might be a seller?
It's actually interesting because I've been in the business for so long that they actually contact me.
Okay.
I've worked with a lot of banks, lawyers, accountants, immigration specialists that are looking for their clients to assist with diversifying their market portfolio and looking long term for their family, for legacy, and just safety for their investments. And so it's just kind of happened that we have these opportunities, and people get very passionate about the wine business and the whole hospitality, and then the whole food program and the art program that comes with it, and just everything that is to do with the wine business in general. And it's also real estate, which is architecturally, we've got some beautiful wineries that have been built, and it's really lovely.
Well, I can't wait to showcase more about what Washington has in store for you and for us and to our audience. Christa Frosch is joining us as the Vice President of Farm Ranch and Vineyard Operations. We are launching a new division to take us a little further east and into some new territories with your expertise, but also to help our existing clients and our existing agents in our roster activate this. So walk us through how you've partnered with other agents in your company or even third party to bring your expertise to an opportunity that they might bring to you.
Okay. So when people are looking to sell their winery, it's usually after 10 or 20 years, or sometimes 30 years of being in the business.
Okay.
Most of the wineries sell privately. And what we've done is really looked at who's in the market already to see if they're a buyer, or gone outside and seen who's coming into the market with our partners through the banks and accounting firms and law firms and so on. But what I've been able to do over the years is develop a whole marketing program, but also when you're selling a winery or a vineyard or something, a ranch, or whether it's equestrian or whatever it is, there's different things because there is a business component to it. So it's not just a straight real estate transaction. Plus it has inventory, it has goodwill, it has different components. So it's important to work with experts outside of the industry for capital gains, for taxation, for long-term planning with lands, like the land being in one purchase component and the buildings and the operations being another component of
and
the
the business operation of the inventory. And I would imagine because it's sensitive, I mean, these are legacies, families, and then you also have staff and distribution networks, and you don't want to disrupt that by saying, oh, the matriarch is selling the winery, and all of a sudden the staff starts looking for another job. So there must be sort of a little black book of the way you operate and network and quietly make a transaction, and then you bring the news to the operation. So that makes very good sense to me. Now I got an important question for you. What is your favorite label? What is your favorite varietal?
For BC.
Yes.
So Riesling for white.
Okay.
Our sparkling program we do is very good. So Blue Mountain does a beautiful sparkling program. My friend who has Tantalus Winery, his Riesling and his Pinot Noir are very good. Those I would say are probably my two favorite brands.
You know what kind of wine I like?
What kind?
Lots. Lots of wine. And we are blessed here in Washington State to have a fantastic program. And Red Mountain, you probably heard of, very famous. And there's a whole food and beverage program out there as well, and hospitality. I mean, Walla Walla is just exploded as a tourism destination and actually as a primary residence. So they're building, brand new construction out there. And a lot of folks are getting out of King County and literally exploring their green thumb and getting into this kind of a business operation. And, there's some ego involved too, right? I mean, these are labels that you're sharing around the world, and very high ranked wines here in Washington State. So it made sense for us as our company is looking at expanding our horizons to network with somebody like you. And in this case, we had to go over the border and, work through some immigration dynamics. But, let's talk about this for a second, because Sotheby's International Realty, internationals are middle names. So it makes perfect sense that, we would share this platform together, and your expertise is easily transferable to us here in Washington, as it sounds like it has been in Argentina and Europe and Napa Valley and everywhere else that you would think of when you think about this industry. And I would imagine that some of the investment that might be chasing, say, Napa Valley, which is a higher rent district and has certain tax consequences, that you might be able to divert some of that interest to come to Washington State. And that's just how that works. And so feed our audience a little about how Market Leaders works, why this is a distinct advantage for you. And you're one of the founding members of Market Leaders as well, in addition to this division for the Vineyard Collection. But help us understand how this network within the network really works.
So Market Leaders was developed for bringing people together that are working on luxury residential at a very high level, that they're very unique properties that are very special. And sometimes people are coming from New York, or they're coming from California, or they're coming, Andy Taylor is with Sotheby's in Toronto. So he's in the East, I'm in the West, and really just talking about the market, talking about what's selling and how it's selling and the different markets and all of the different trends that have been happening over 20 years in the market, and then looking at the different opportunities with our through the head office for marketing and getting maximum exposure for our clients in a very effective way with our stories, and just sharing the story of the properties that we represent and assisting our clients with selling them at the highest possible price. And I think that also leads me to with luxury brands that we work with within the hotels, and then have the residential component part of it, that clients are now looking in all of the major markets for investment, not only just for living in, but also for investment. And I think with the market, how it's changed so much in the last few years because of COVID and so on, that there's a real opportunity in markets to really go in and buy investments, to be able to rent them or just hold them, and use the luxury brands that we work with to have success with the family portfolios.
Well, that's another area that we're working together on, and don't mind sharing with the audience that as a gateway city in Vancouver, BC, and ties to a lot of international, especially in the Pacific Rim district, we have a lot of investors, inbound interest in making some bets on the future. And with the shifting of politics and taxation in Canada, there's been some diversion south of the border to us here in Washington State. So your timing maybe just be perfect. And you are syndicating equity. You are helping with land planning, and you are working with sophisticated investment groups and developers that are trying to, establish themselves in a brand new market. And that's where we come in with our division and the other expertise that we have, such as with Kelly Mann and Tadashi Shiga and Dylan Guo, and a whole concert of advisors that can help us go from concept to closing. And now that we have your resources joining the team, we really do have a one-stop shop to attract the equity, to organize the investments, and whether it's an existing operation that we're acquiring privately or building ground up, you have that experience, especially in the viticulture world. As well as some level of retail too, because these businesses oftentimes, that, as you were saying, that's a component of it. And so we were joking earlier about a BOV, or what's known as a broker opinion of value, but you also do the BOP, right, which is a broker opinion of possibility. Helping a family office explore their land and saying, well, why don't you do this or consider that, or adding a nuance to their business operation that might not be on their mind right now. And that makes sense for us before we go bring a property to market, as we want to bring as much value as possible.
Absolutely.
So I think that is so exciting for Washington State. And what is your attraction to our market as well? Like, you've been touring with us for the whole week. We've been to Kitsap County, we've been to Kittitas, we've been up north, down south. You've looked at a number of our holdings and properties. We were up with the Trailside Group and with Adara, which we're very proud of, in Cle Elum. When you're looking at where we are in our market cycle and where some of these developments are, literally, in the first months of going vertical, do they remind you of any places that you've had experience with in BC that might be more mature and gives us a kind of a harbinger moment of seeing what the future might be for us?
Yeah, I feel that in the last 20 years in BC, in particular, Squamish, Whistler had a very big, that whole corridor, because of the Olympics, but also they expanded the roads and
the Highway 99.
Highway 99, and just as a destination, but as a weekend destination, as a secondary property, the Vancouver Island, because you have the islands all around you here, and just the history, the stories, just the opportunity to develop something further for the communities and plan. So when you're doing the master plan communities, you can add an agricultural component, you can add a vineyard component, you can add a distillery or a cidery. And during COVID, a lot of people started to really look at different opportunities that were outside of the city, where they could live and they could enjoy and they could create something with food and culture and all of those things, and just driving around and having the time and experience and looking at the mountains, looking at the water and all the things. I feel that, we kind of reflect each other at different time frames, and I feel like BC probably is 10 years ahead as far as the marketing and the exposure of what the wineries and the wine regions, but also I think the island living and this whole opportunity with taking the ferry and living on the island and coming into the city, but having the opportunity to go to farmers markets and be in nature. And if you're a person that likes hiking and biking and water sports and all of those things, you have everything right here, and it's at a very good price. So it's actually a really good opportunity. Your market is still more affordable than the Vancouver market. The Vancouver market, because of all of the investment that came in the last 15 years, it really maximized. And also because of the way that the city is, there's no extra space. So we had to go up, and we have a lot of high rises. We have it's a different city than it was 10 years ago. And I feel that you're doing a great job with your waterfront, where Pike's Place is, and the whole area down by the water being revitalized. I think it's wonderful. And with all the port and everything else, I just feel that there's a real opportunity based on price to develop and do some really special things together.
Well, I know some of your investment groups that you've worked with in other world-class cities, not to be named here, but they have significant hotel brands and capital groups. And Seattle, Bellevue metro area is back on the map, huh?
Absolutely. I know that I know that some of the clients that I work with had looked at the market before 2008, and I know that because of where we're positioned here, West Coast, that it makes sense to really develop the luxury, but also the brands. As far as hotels that are in the city, it would be great to have a few more brands and then have residential components. And I know that we talked about the condo market and the how much product there is, and what the product for the future is looking like based on what projects are going on.
Right.
And so I think this idea of having something in the city but having something outside of the city and being able
Right.
to enjoy both sides is something that you're going to see more of here.
Well, and with the transportation changes like the I-90 expansion project, which is helping bring Kittitas and the eastern counties, much closer to us reliably, and then the fast ferries out to Kitsap. We looked at some exciting projects. Let's talk about a couple of other divisions that would fit within this special project, distinction that you have. Let's talk about lumber. I mean, the timber. How does that industry work? And have you had experience in helping land barons acquire their next, portfolio? We have some properties around town here, and some of it's getting developed, but there's still a lot of acreage of timberlands.
So it's very interesting because in Germany, because families hold large properties, so 2,000 acres, 5,000 acres. Germany's quite small compared to North America. So there's been a lot of investment from German families into the States, into Canada for long-term custodian planning for the families. And we've sold numerous forests in BC because we have the Kootenays, which is quite large. And I know that there's an opportunity in Washington to also look at some of the different private opportunities, because in Canada, which is different than the States also, is that federal government in Canada, Crown, owns a lot of the land.
Right.
So there's very little opportunity to hold a forest long term. So they don't come up very often. I believe that in the States you have more forests than we have actually.
Right.
And there is opportunities privately. So for someone that's a family office that's looking at long-term investment for next generations, it's also a very good opportunity and a smart investment.
Well, these timberlands can be harvested again and again, obviously long-term, but sometimes they can be remapped with all the expansion need, of these municipalities, and they can be even incorporated as their own municipalities and creating, new towns, or in the case of Adair up at Clay Elum, which you were able to tour the other day, that's like doubling the size of Clay Elum and is adding, nearly 1,000 home sites, within walking distance of a already bustling, historic town that's just less than 90 minutes away from Seattle. So it's an interesting consideration. Now, the challenge is some of these remapping of former timberlands can take decades of entitlement work. So it's really unique that we have some that are ready to go vertical. And I know you're talking to some of your investors about, adding value to those visions that actually started many decades ago. Now, speaking of yet another division you have expertise in, let's talk about the equestrian business. And first of all, how long have you been riding?
Since I was 3.5. I got my first pony when I was 3.5.
Wow.
And then started riding after that.
And do you own horses now?
No, but
Yeah.
I have a
Friends with horses are better.
I ride weekly.
Oh wow, that's fabulous.
I have a sublease on a horse.
Okay.
And I enjoy it very much. And it's a whole other world of lifestyle and just enjoyment. And I think you have that here too, where you quite competitive. A lot of jumping, dressage, all of those kind of things.
And we have some very unique real estate neighborhoods. Think of Bridle Trails, for instance, which is not too far away from us right here on the east side. And, you can absolutely have an equestrian lifestyle right within, a major urban environment. But then there's the whole ex-urban ranch, that's the farm and ranch division that ties back into your experience. And because of the cost of that industry and other taxation and even maybe global warming, we've seen an increase from those that might be in the southern states in the Sun Belt or in California for tax reasons especially, that they're looking north going, look, I just get a little more, run for the money, if you will, looking at equestrian estates here. Any notable transactions or current listings that would bring our audience a little more flavor for how that equestrian business works?
There currently is a new listing that's just being launched just outside of Thunderbird in the Langley area, where
Okay.
that's where all of the jumping happens. And we have international horses coming in every year, all summer long, and doing jumping shows, dressage shows. It's a very renowned and well recognized location, and we have a family that is going to be selling, and they're retiring from the business after a long time of being in the business, and it's going to be launching with Sotheby's coming up shortly, which is great.
Well, one thing that I've always enjoyed about Sotheby's and their marketing approach is it's matchless exposure, clearly. And through your network with the market leaders, you've got a distinct division within this beautiful network around the world already. And you're collaborating because you're not competing, you're helping one another. But there are lifestyle marketing platforms, like we've got, Island Properties and Farm and Ranch, of course, Vineyards, equestrian properties. So you can literally shop the world based upon lifestyle and psychographic goals. And you might be surprised, because you might think you were absolutely certain you wanted a ranch in Texas, only to find out that you're in Eastern Washington. And being able to collaborate with a brand that speaks all that language and has expertise on valuation and possibilities is a major hallmark of what you bring to the table as an advisor with us, or as a broker. So how would you position yourself to help some of our other agents in our company? I know we have a number that are already very active in the equestrian realm, and wondering how you might add value for them.
I think just based on being with Sotheby's for 20 years, basically, I have a lot of clients around the world, being European, living in Europe, now being back and forth to the States and Canada, and just working with, BMO. So during COVID, I actually assisted market leaders with positioning BMO Bank, Canada division and America division across border, which is a whole program that they do, which is just wonderful. And it's allowed me to work with the family offices, all of the private bankers. They have different divisions, which is very helpful when you're selling something more private, based on if it has a business component and you don't want employees to necessarily know. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And I think our head office does a great job with positioning stories, interesting stories about properties that have history that need to be shared. And if the opportunity is to sell and market the property, that it's a great opportunity.
Oh, I love that. And I think, having, it's been many decades now since I came down from Vancouver, is that the influence that Canada has had, especially up in northern Washington here. I mean, a large portion of our high-rise developers have come from Vancouver. A lot of marketing and sales talent, and some very innovative ideas in design. And it's not to say that that's not homegrown here as well, but there is this sort of symbiotic relationship between these sister cities of Vancouver and Seattle. I know we've borrowed tower spacing and some zoning bylaws that was a model. I mean, Vancouver was basically a model for some of the Seattle activity. So it wouldn't surprise anyone if you can learn from, an older sibling in some cases, where some of these designs have been tried and tested, or policies have been tried and tested. But it's interesting, you said earlier that it's just a lot more expensive up there. I mean,
It's a lot more
so
expensive.
you see a longer runway of capital appreciation here in Washington State?
Absolutely. I feel like your position now for people to come in for investment and really have the rise of the investment. Our pricing is completely different in Canada for land. Going back to vineyards for a moment, land is very expensive in the Okanagan, where I have clients that actually bought in Red Mountain. They purchased 800 acres and they did a beautiful winery there. They planted Cab Sauv, 800 acres.
Wow.
And they actually chose, they're from Italy. They looked around the world and they actually decided to plant and invest in Washington for a specific reason of weather, land availability, and cost.
Right.
So I feel that Washington, especially with what's going on in California and the water issue and
Right.
climate change and everything, and the Washington actually is very well positioned for that whole agritourism, wine industry, adding estates, doing interesting things where you can have housing, like housing within vineyards.
Mhm.
And so you have the opportunity, if you'd like to learn about wine making, there's opportunities to do that as well. We did that in Argentina. It was very successful.
What other trends do you think is likely to come ashore here to the Pacific Northwest, based on your experience internationally and just lifestyle demands or investment requirements?
I think, well, obviously residential housing is
Yeah.
a really
We need some more of that.
it's a really important part of the program. But I also feel that with the whole lifestyle of wineries, distilleries, brewing, for breweries, cideries are very profitable, and they're way less risk than some of the wineries and so on. So I feel that, and people are going more low alcohol. That's another trend.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, the
cocktails are
spritzers
really
and,
important, but spritzers have taken off. White Claw, Anthony Von Mandel, family friend who started Mission Hill Winery. He did
wow.
White Claw during COVID, and
That worked out okay.
worked out very well for him. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I
Very
think real estate and
innovative.
alcohol go together fairly well sometimes. Well, it's a very, social element of our society, and I think you're right about our region having a very distinct advantage as it to our climate and to our soils and to the infrastructure that's in place, and that's one of the reasons why the I-90 exchange between the Seattle Bellevue metro area and east of the Cascades is such an important corridor, because some of the freight coming back and forth, in fact, is the grapes, and we have a lot of production facilities on this side of the Cascades, and I'm sure you've been through Woodinville. I mean, literally hundreds of individual vintners that are producing there, and they've created an industry onto itself. So it is a great welcome to you, Christa, here in Washington State, and I'm so proud to be working closely with you here as the VP of Farm Ranch and Vineyard Properties. It's a new division for us, and I know that we're going to make some sweet wine together. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
welcome to the team.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's another episode for us of Market Perspectives. Thank you, Christa Frosch, and we'll see you next time. Please feel free to leave us a comment and join us on social media, and we'll see you there.